It's now time to explore reports. Now, reports in an Access database are effectively the means of extracting some data into a presentable format for you to then use in another application. So really, it's an export option, but in a presentable format. It's not just exporting the data, which we can do by simply exporting to Excel. It is a presentable format. So it's page laid out, got headings, it's got margins, and it's made presentable either to print or to send to a PDF. So how do we create a report in the first place? Well, to start with, we're going to use the wizard. So if we take our customers database and we go to create, we can see the report section here, and we have the option for a report wizard, blank report, a report in design, or a quick report. And there's even a labels option. To start with, we're going to use the report wizard. Now the report wizard firstly wants to know where to get the data from, and we can choose from existing tables or queries. So you can base the report on tables or queries. In the case of our first report here, let's take the query Australian customers, which is actually all the columns from the customers table, but only for Australian customers. We then see all the fields that are available in that particular query, and we then need to decide which of those fields we would like to see on our report. Now we can either put the fields across one at a time or all of them in one go. The double-headed arrow here pushes them all onto the report, and then the left double-headed arrow takes them all off. Really, I ought to be selecting, so it's title, we'll have that, first name, last name. Notice how a double click does the same as single and the arrow. And let's take their phone, email address would be very useful, and their purchases. So I've made a choice of the fields I would like to see on my report. I then go next. Would you like to add any grouping? At this stage, no, but we will come back and see how you can add grouping. So at the moment, it's just going to show me all of my data in a sort of tabular layout. Next, would I like the data to be sorted at all? Sorted differently to its source. So at the moment, I'm pulling this information from an Australian query. If that query has been told to sort the data, it will be presented in that format. Or I can tell the report to sort it, perhaps slightly differently. Well, let's go for last name as a primary sort, first name as a secondary sort. Should they be the same, we will then sort by the phone. Then next, how would you like to lay out your report? Tabular is best for these kinds of lots of data rows, but we could go column, and it will attempt to fit one record on each page, just like a form would, or justified, which creates lots of pretty boxes. I'm going to stick with tabular. What I then need to think is, okay, if I'm going tabular, have I chosen so many fields that this page needs to be turned around landscape? Think I might have, or it could be quite close, so I'm going to go landscape anyway. If you've only chosen a handful of fields, then portrait will suffice. Now we can ask Access, and by default it's on, to effectively squash the columns you've chosen onto the page. I'm going to leave that option in place, because what happens if it just goes over slightly is you end up using a lot more paper when we could have really got the wizard to sort us out. So I'm leaving that option in there. It's going to effectively make all of those columns fit onto a landscape page. Next, then I need to add a title for the report. Now when it says title, it also means the name, so I'm going to call it RPT. That's my preferred prefix for reports. So we've got our 4 prefixes: TBL for tables, QRY for queries, FRM for forms, RPT for reports. Again, avoiding spaces and using camel case so it's slightly easier to read. I then have 2 options to finish off the wizard. Do I preview the report, or do I go straight into the report's design? Well, let's preview the report and see what we get. So let's finish. The report gets created. I can see that it appears to have worked. One click zooms me away, one click zooms in. And I can see that Access has managed to fit every one of the columns I chose onto a landscape page. Last name, first name, phone, title, email address, and total purchase YTD. It's taken the name of the report and used that as the title. Now the wizard only asked me for the title, but it's gone and used it in both places. So I would need to edit that slightly. The name of the object is fine, that appears over there in the reports list. It's also added page X of Y for me, and on the left it's added the date. So the wizard does do quite a lot of the work for you. That report is now created. We even have it as banded. So I've got white background, grey background, white background, grey background, and I've had to do nothing but answer a few questions as I've run through the wizard. So that's creating a report using the wizard. Now that I'm here in Print Preview, I can click Close on the Print Preview. That drops me into Design. Then I can click the little cross to close the report. It sits over here. Now, just like queries and the forms, every time that report is run, so which is double click, it goes to the source data, in this case a query, extracts that information from the tables and displays it. So if there were any changes since it last ran, those changes will be visible. So it's very quick to create a report that meets a variety of needs. So it's create report wizard, choose the object to get your data from, whether that's a table or a number of queries. I'm going to go for QRY customers shortened. Let's just have the first name and the last name and their birth date. No grouping. Sort them by the birth date descending. Can stay portrait this time. There's only 3 columns. Make sure it fits on the page. Well, it will. Next, RPT, customers shortened, finish. And the report gets created, and we can see birth date, first name, last name, quite easily fitting on a portrait width. But there are 561 pages because of the quantity of customers. So that's using the wizard to create a report. I would often recommend that you use a query to do any filtering of your data, then base the form on that query. So the filtering is already done. The report is then used for presentation of that data.